Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the comprehensive yet informal study of Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. I'm particularly excited about this session because not only am I here with Harrison and Pat, who have been here for most of the study, but also because we are here at the end of the deduction of the pure concepts of understanding, and after this we'll be moving on to the second book, which contains the analytic of principles, which should go into phenomena and noumena, among other really cool things. Or if for some reason I'm getting the technical division of the book wrong, it's still just coming up pretty soon. So phenomena noumena, which is like a topic that I wanted. This it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do the study. Um, one of them was to understand apperception better, which I got out of what we've been doing, and that's what we've been doing, by the way, just for some context, looking into apperception and how it works and some of the implications of it. Like last time, we were talking about a cause and how that works, although it doesn't apply to specific natural laws, which I was a little bothered by, but uh, oh well, so it goes. And leaves open a problem of philosophy, that being the problem of induction. So if you're curious about all that, watch the last one, and you probably shouldn't be here at this video if you haven't watched the other ones either. So make sure you're all caught up. And with that said, we're at the result of this deduction of the concepts of understanding, which I believe we've gotten the results, but maybe he's going to summarize them or something. So, or add something new. I don't really know. There's only one way to find out, and that's by reading it. So, right now, I'll leave the floor open to any other preliminary comments or context givings. And
I would
yeah,
generally anticipate that this is a summary, especially considering how much Kant loves to summarize his work. Um,
yes, that's what I was thinking, and I agree with you.
so
So yeah,
I'm not anticipating a lot new here.
me neither. Um, all right. Um, so if those are all the preliminary comments and context givings, as I've been calling them, we can get reading. Would anyone like to begin?
Alright.
Sure. We cannot think any object except through categories. We cannot cognize any object that is thought except through intuitions that correspond to those concepts. Now, all our intuitions are sensible, and this cognition, so far as its object is given, is empirical. Empirical cognition, however, is experience. Consequently, no a priori cognition is possible for us except solely of objects of possible experience.
Do we want to read this footnote
And I'll
or?
do the footnote, yeah.
Okay.
So that one may not prematurely take issue with the worrisome and disadvantageous consequences of this proposition, I will only mention that the categories are not restricted in thinking by the conditions of our sensible intuition, but have an unbound field, and only the cognition of objects um, that cognition of objects. I can't read that last word.
That we
Get
think.
that.
That we think the determination of the object requires intuition. In the absence of the latter, the thought of the object can still have its true and useful consequences for the use of the subject's reason, which, however, cannot be expounded here, for it is not always directed to the determination of the object, thus to cognition, but rather also to the subject and its willing. So, I think while the paragraph itself was mostly summary, this is has a little excuse me, this has a little bit more meat to it,
Yeah.
right? He's drawing the distinction between thinking and cognition,
Mm-hmm.
right? Cognition being this rich sense where there's a sort of correspondence between something in the subject and something in the object. And only cognition for Kant, of course, can yield, um, I won't say knowledge, but certainly knowledge which is synthetic, and therefore, according to Kant, which adds to our actual repertoire of things known, so to speak, rather than merely clarifying it. So he would say, right, that thinking is not restricted by sensible intuition in itself, but only through cognition. And so, what is the thinking that is outside of the round of sensible intuition? Well, actually, that's the title drop. It's pure reason,
Mm.
right? Thinking that is not restricted by our sensible intuition
Uh,
is reason, which he takes further than the understanding, drawing a distinction between the two of them. Um,
is there a
yeah.
difference between like pure reason and just like this use of the subject's reason, which he like describes
Well, there's also
explicitly?
practical reason.
Well, I
So
know, yeah,
practical reason.
that, but
Well,
I'm
so
saying
practical
like,
reason is a categorical imperative because it does not require any kind of sensible intuition in order to be thought. So
right,
it's reason for reason in the practical capacity rather than in the speculative capacity.
right. But in terms of this specific, like, he's talking about pure reason here. I'm saying there's no difference between that and what he's describing here.
Well, he's talking about reason in general here,
Oh, okay.
right? Whether it's pure or practical.
Okay.
Reason in general is thinking which is not restricted by those conditions, a sensible intuition.
Okay. And pure and practical are subtypes of that reason.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Cool.
That is
Just wanted
my
to.
and I feel actually pretty confident in that, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I mean, I do too, given where
So
this has
pure reason is
been
the
and where it's going,
speculative.
but.
Yeah. Pure reason is the speculative capacity of thinking without intuition. Practical reason is the practical capacity of thinking without intuition.
Hmm.
So, intuitions or concepts without intuitions are empty, and yet their emptiness is still of practical use to us.
Yes,
Interesting
interesting thing that
verbiage.
I think post-Kantians particularly have Hegel in mind will critique, but that comes later. So, okay, that's the footnote. Are there any other net questions or comments about this before we move on?
No,
Cool. Does anyone want to read the second paragraph?
sure.
Cool. Thanks, Harris.
But this cognition, which is limited merely to objects of experience, is not on that account all borrowed from experience. Rather, with regard to the pure intuitions as well as the pure concepts of the understanding, there are elements of cognition that are to be encountered in us a priori. Now, there are only two ways in which a necessary agreement of experience with the concepts of its objects can be thought. Either the experience makes the concepts possible, or these concepts make the experience possible. The first is not the case with the categories, nor with pure sensible intuition, for they are a priori concepts, hence independent of experience. The assertion of an empirical origin would be a sort of generatio equivoca. Consequently, only the second way remains.
Let's read that
Remain.
little a there. Generatio equivoca, generation of the sort of something that is essentially different, e.g., the supposed generation of flies from rotting meat.
That's interesting. The example.
You guys have heard about this, right? It used to be widely believed that
Flies spawn out of
flies,
rotting meat, right?
yeah, flies just spawn out of rotting meat.
Yeah, which
That was a thing that was believed.
he's just to be clear for anyone who might be confused, he's drawing that like analogy. He's using it as an analogy to like uh, uh expose the fallacy found in people trying to say that like the a priori concepts arise out of empirical origin.
I see.
Like
Yeah. Okay.
like maybe an empiricist would do or something. He's trying to say no, that's generatio equivalent. He's saying you're saying the same thing as if flies came from rotting meat.
That's a very good example.
Yeah. Um, cool. Okay. So then, do you want
Yeah.
to reread this sentence and I'll flip the page?
Sure. Yeah. Consequently, only the second way remains, as it were, a system of the epigenus. Epigenesis.
Epigenesis.
Abigenesis of pure reason.
I'm just gonna go to this footnote real quick. Oh, that's an endnote. Never mind. Sorry. Continue.
Namely,
Sorry.
okay. Namely, that the categories contain the grounds of the possibility of all experience in general from the side of the understanding, but more about how they make experience possible, and which principles of its possibility they yield in their application to appearances, will be taught in the following chapter on the transcendental use of the power of judgment.
Okay, so here we have actual. Yeah, you were right, Patrick. um, pure reason dropped,
Yep, pure reason.
and I think you explained that before well, so I don't think we need to go over that again. But it's just cool to see that confirmed explicitly in the text.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna learn more about that. So
Always good when we're following the Kant.
hell yeah. Um, all right. I guess I'll read this next paragraph. If there are no more questions or comments on that one. If someone still wanted to propose a middle way between the only two already named ways, namely, that was written weird. I'm going to reread that. Sorry. If someone still wanted to propose a middle way between the only two already named ways, namely, that the categories were neither self-thought a priori first principles of our cognition, nor drawn from experience, but were rather subjective predispositions for thinking, implanted in us along with our existence by our author in such a way that their use would agree exactly with the laws of nature along which experience runs, a kind of preformation system of pure reason, then, besides the fact that on such a hypothesis no end can be seen to how far one might drive the presupposition of a predetermined presuppositions for future judgments, this would be decisive against the supposed middle way. That in such a case, the categories would lack the necessity that is essential to their concept. For, e.g., the concept of cause, which asserts the necessity of a consequent under a presupposed condition, would be false if it rested only on a subjective necessity, arbitrarily implanted in us, of combining certain empirical representations according to such a rule of relation. I would not be able to say that the effect is combined with the cause and the object, i.e., necessarily, but only that I am so constituted that I cannot think of this representation otherwise than as so connected, which is precisely what the skeptic wishes most, for then all of our insight through the supposed objective validity of our judgments is nothing but sheer illusion, and there would be no shortage of people who would not concede this subjective necessity, which must be felt on their own. At least one would not be able to quarrel with anyone about that which merely depends on the way in which his subject is organized. So that was a pretty weirdly worded, yet interesting argument, I think.
I think that was kind of shots fired at you, Matt.
Oh yeah,
At your wizard shit.
yeah,
I mean, the main difference being that it would be yourself rather than your maker, but you would be this author of yourself according to this theory under which we sort of posit laws, right?
yeah,
Well, the problem is then they would lack necessity.
yep, yeah. No, I agree. This is a good. I like this argument. I mean, I kind of was withdrawing from the wizard
Yeah,
hypothesis after the end of the last one anyway, but
yeah.
yeah, this is another good.
Rip Hogwarts.
Yeah. um, yeah. I like this argument though. This is cool.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions or anything? Or comments?
So is the argument that if we simply allow ourselves to posit laws, then we have no meaningful way to distinguish between that which is necessary and that which was just randomly created?
So that's sort of the adaptation of the argument. He's not thinking of laws as simply posited by us, but rather by an external creator. I think
I
it
think he's
works
going
either
after
way.
Descartes.
Yeah, yes, probably. But I'm pretty sure it works either way.
Okay.
Cool. Real quick, I'm just gonna go to my own copy of the critique and look at this endnote. I'm curious. It might not be anything significant, but this is page 265. just in case there's something for us to gather here. 49. Oh, this alludes to the biological theory, the antithesis of epigenesis, that the embryo exists completely formed in the germ cell of one parent, and that the other parent's germ cell only stimulates its growth. Okay. Yeah.
So, Aristotle's theory that women are inferior.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's not the case here, because it would make any. That would pretty much right here is the argument, the lack of necessity. So, okay, cool. Then we just have the brief concept of this deduction, which I believe is still in the same section. There's no new section mark. There's no footnote saying there should be, so I believe this is in the same section 27. Does anyone want to read this?
I guess I'll go.
Cool.
It is the exhibition of the pure concepts of the understanding, and with them all theoretical cognition a priori, as principles of the possibility of experience. What? Oh, I see. It's what this deduction is.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, I get it. But of the latter as the determination of appearances of space and time in general, and the latter, finally, from the principle of the original synthetic unity of our perception as the form of the understanding in relation to space and time as the original forms of sensibilities. I'll just finish it. I hold the division into paragraphs to be necessary only this far, because we have been dealing with the elementary concepts. Now that we will represent their use, the exposition may proceed in a continuous fashion without this division.
Okay.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, this is kind of cool. We've only been dealing with the baby shit, guys, up to this point. So
everything we've been doing so far, bullshit. We're getting to real Kant now.
yeah, no,
Guitar
I'm
solo.
literally.
Dun, dun,
I'm,
dun.
yeah.
Doom music starts.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there's some sort of sound that I can play here that would Riz sounds. Oh, we're getting to the real shit now. This is such a good idea. Oops.
Soundboard, yeah.
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 So, that's it. That's the deduction. Any other comments or anything before we go
Consider yourself deduced.
on?
I am right now very confused, but I think that is more a product of me being very tired and not necessarily of the work itself.
Oh, okay. Do you have any specific questions, and I can tell you whether we can answer them and it's appropriate, or if you should read something else that we've already covered?
I think it's only one of those things where it's like I think I should just wait and come back to it another time. It would be too many, far too many questions.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
No
But
problem.
we're chilling. We're chilling.
Okay. Cool. Well, in that case, we are chilling, and thank you for joining us to this transcendental deduction. Aside from that weird gaslighting bullshit, I got a lot out of this, and I really appreciate it. It's definitely a huge moment in the history of philosophy, just this part, and this has only been the baby shit. So we're getting to the real Kant, the real shit. Which, like I think I said at the beginning, but I'll reiterate it here. We'll be moving on to the. I didn't take a picture of it here, so I can't show you the page right now. But next time we'll be on the Transcendental Analytic, his second book, The Analytic of Principles.
Real shit.
Which he says the beginning lines are: general logic is constructed on a plan that corresponds quite precisely with the division of higher faculties of cognition. These are understanding, the power of judgment, and reason. So and we'll be seeing you there to cover the understanding, the power of judgment, and reason. I'm excited. Hopefully these will be more than merely elementary concepts. And yeah, we'll be chilling. and we'll be learning about cool shit and important things that even post-Kantians use in philosophy, and things that are still relevant, hopefully, today. Not that these things aren't, but as Kant says himself, these are merely the elementary concepts. So I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but there's definitely more on the way. Is my point. So, uh, cool. If there are no other comments, I will end this recording, this short little 20-minute comprehensive yet informal study, and we'll see you next time for the Analytic of Principles. Yippee!
Ooh,
See you there.
yippee!